So was this episode of Monday Night Raw slightly above average? Yes, I'll give them that. It was slightly better than usual. It was better than the average Monday Night Raw in 2025. It was slightly decent. I'll give them that, like I said. And guess what? I'll do you one better. Was this episode of Monday Night Raw better than WrestlePalooza? Yeah, I'll give them that. But if you're one of those people that thinks, or even thought for a second, that this means that we're headed in the right direction, if you think this means that WWE is finally taking steps in the right direction, if you think this show is actually hope that WWE is going to get better this year, then I'm sorry, but you're just a dumbass. Cause think, for once in your goddamn lives, guys, think. You guys are better than this. You guys have been here before. And I mean several times before. This has literally been WWE throughout 2025. It's just a loop. It's just a cycle, you know? The cycle of WWE's bad. Everybody's hating WWE. They're getting a lot of backlash. And then WWE randomly does some desperate move. Then, it gets the fans popping all of a sudden. And everybody's back to glazing WWE. And now that they got rid of the backlash, they just go back to sucking once again. And then after they've spent a good amount of months, sucking, and they're getting a lot of backlash, they're getting a lot of criticisms, all of a sudden they're going to pull something out of their ass once again that's a desperate move, and it's the same thing over and over again. It's just the same cycle for the rest of 2025. Or for the entirety of 2025. Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, I've given these examples countless times. John Cena's heel turn. Why was it done? WrestleMania season was horrible. Nobody was hyped. The fans were complaining. And guess what? They turned John Cena heel as a desperate move, as a desperate viral moment. And Triple H even went on the post-show press conference and said, do you guys think it's WrestleMania season now? Does it feel like it's WrestleMania season now? So it's clear that they did it only so that it feels like WrestleMania season. Because the fans were complaining that it doesn't feel like WrestleMania season. Not just the fans. Everybody, dude. All the so-called journalists, all the news articles, everybody. And obviously, I can give countless more examples, like Seth Rollins' heel turn, for example, like R-Truth's return, for example, as Ron Killings. I can give you several more examples, but I'm not going to do that, so, I can stick to the point. The point is, this Monday Night Raw was just a desperate move as well. Why? Because WrestlePalooza was god-awful. That's why. The fans were complaining. Like every single fan, dude. Every single fan I've seen on the internet was complaining about this show. I've not seen a single person say that this show was good. Not even the big-time WWE glazers, Like even the people that have made a career out of bootlicking this company clearly hated the show. And guess what? It's not just the fans. It's not just the internet marks. It's not just us, It's also ESPN themselves. ESPN themselves said that the show sucked. Said that the show was, below average. Said that it didn't live up to the expectations. ESPN, the platform that this whole thing was revolved around, the new era of WWE. They gave the show a C rating and said that, guys, this was horrible. Okay, maybe not horrible. This was average. This was, below average. You guys set our expectations so high, and you did not deliver at all, not even close. That's what they said. So obviously, with all this backlash they've been getting, obviously they got to do some good stuff. And I'm not just talking about this Monday Night Raw and how it was, slightly decent, slightly above average, blah, 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 all that stuff. I'm also talking about the tweet that John Cena put out just a while ago. He tweeted, #Cena versus Styles, #WWE Raw. Thoughts? Now, here's the thing. At first, I jumped out of my seat. I was really excited. I was like, oh, John Cena's finally playing the politician, He's finally politicking to get the matches he wants. But here's the thing. All of this is being done just to avoid the backlash. That's all they care about. After that, they're just going to go back to sucking once again, like I said. Fans are disappointed with how Brock Lesnar versus John Cena was booked. They're disappointed with how the retirement tour has been booked. And obviously that was clear at WrestlePalooza. The fans made their opinions vocal after WrestlePalooza. Everybody's hating on Triple H's booking of John Cena right now. And obviously they got to do some great stuff like this. Desperate stuff like this, should I add. And here's the thing. I'm not complaining, all right? I wouldn't complain if we do get some good stuff. Like, yeah, sure, they're supposed to do that. That's the bare minimum. But here's the thing. The problem is they're going to go back to sucking real quick. Because we've seen this before. Every single time WWE makes a big move like this, they don't have any future plans. Like, they just fire their biggest shot, but they're not aiming at anything. They don't know what it's going to hit. They don't know how it's going to impact the future. They don't know anything. Everything is just short-term shock factor. Like, come on, man. Come on. But yeah, whatever, let's just get to the point. Let's get into this show match by match, segment by segment. Let's review Monday Night Raw. So the show kicks off with Cody Rhodes. Evansville. What do you want to talk about? So I won this ring last year. You know what? I don't have the patience for this, man. So yeah, whatever. Cody Rhodes says that he won the ring or the crown jewel ring last year, and now he's looking forward to do it this year. But this time his opponent is Seth freaking Rollins. But then Rollins' music hits. He interrupts Cody Rhodes. He asks Paul Heyman and Braun to read Braun Breaker to stay behind, and they stay on the ramp while Seth Rollins gets in the ring and he talks with Cody Rhodes. Now, let me tell you a little something about this promo before we actually take a deep dive into this. I did like this promo, I guess it was kind of good. But I don't know. I feel like we could have explored the Seth Rollins and, Cody Rhodes dynamic a lot better. They could have done a better job at exploring their dynamic. Because let me tell you this, I really like the dynamic between Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins, I've always liked it. I've liked the dynamic they've had since 2022, and maybe even before that, These guys have a long history, like, the Rhodes brothers versus the Shield, and then even after that, outside of kayfabe, like, when Cody Rhodes was Stardust and stuff like that, and Seth Rollins was WWE champion, Cody Rhodes just always had that bitterness, the fact that a Dusty's kid, from NXT is now WWE champion before me, and I'm stuck here painting my face. And Cody Rhodes did mention that in their 2022 rivalry, And Cody Rhodes did mention that in their 2022 rivalry, Cody Rhodes did say, like, hey, I used to chase you. I was bitter. I wanted to be in your position. But now I'm the top guy. You're not on my level. And the way Seth Rollins sees things, he thinks he's the, workhorse of WWE. He carried the WWE through some dark times, Like in the late 2010s, nobody's had more matches than Seth Rollins. This guy was, working his ass off. Obviously, he was the workhorse of WWE. And after all that hard work, after everything he did for the company, this outsider who spent every single second he spent outside of WWE criticizing them, not just criticizing them, like degrading them. Like he took a sledgehammer to, Triple H's throne. Like this guy was disrespecting WWE with every single chance he got. And he just swooped in and took my spot. He took my spotlight. And I'm sorry, but that dynamic was just not there in this promo, or just not highlighted enough. It didn't feel like a Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins promo. It just felt like a Cody Rhodes and anybody promo. Like this whole promo had very little progression. Very little. Because look, Seth Rollins got in the ring and he picked up the mic and he was all like, Cody, look, I know what everybody thinks about me. I know what the locker room thinks about me. I know what the fans think about me. I know what everybody thinks about me. But guess what? I don't care. Now, obviously, he said that because, he's a heel now. He sold his soul, quote unquote, to Paul Heyman and all that stuff. And obviously, a lot of people hate Seth Rollins now because of that, in the locker room, the fans, whatever. And obviously, Seth Rollins said that he doesn't care about it. But then in this very next breath, he goes on to say, what do you think about me, Cody Rhodes? That's what I want to know. That's what's important to me. What do you think about me? Like, bro, you just said you don't care. You just say you know what everybody in the locker room thinks about you. That includes Cody Rhodes, right? He's a part of the locker room. He's a part of WWE. He's a part of, everybody, quote unquote. Like, why do you care? Seth Rollins should have said, guess what, Cody? I don't care what you think about me either. I don't care about what you think about my business relationship with Paul Heyman. I don't care about what you think about, how good I am in the ring. I don't care if you're confident that you're better than me and that you're going to beat me at Crown Jewel just because you've beaten me thrice before. Because I'm not the same man anymore, Cody. I held this championship for 316 days with a broken back, a broken knee, a broken everything, and I still pushed through. I still showed up. I still fought. I still defended the championship more than anybody. No vacations, no nothing. Meanwhile, you had to take a month-long vacation just because John Cena embarrassed your bitch ass at WrestleMania. I have the Oracle by my side now. I hate calling him that, but obviously we got to stick to the script here. I have the Oracle by my side now. I have two of WWE's biggest prodigies by my side, or not really by my side, following my lead as I lead them into the future because they recognize the greatness that is Seth Rollins. I am not the same man you stepped into Hell in a Cell with, and you're going to learn that at Crown Jewel when I stomp your freaking head to the ground. That's what Seth Rollins should be saying. He should just have that hunger, He should be hungry to beat Cody Rhodes, hungry to prove that he's improved his game. But instead, Seth Rollins just gets on the mic and he's like, what do you think about me, Cody Rhodes? What do you think about me? Do you think I'm like he's still seeking validation from Cody Rhodes? Like, what? He's asking Cody Rhodes if he thinks he's good enough, if he thinks, he's good enough to lead the company and all that stuff. Like, why do you care? And then he's all like, oh, look at this watch, Cody. Look at this watch you bought me at WrestleMania 40. I haven't worn it ever since. Like, who cares? Okay, fine. Obviously, that I exaggerate a little bit. Obviously, some people do care. And here's the thing, this could be an emotional device used in the storyline, but guess what? They didn't do that. They didn't. It was just some BS that Seth Rollins said for no reason, He's just like, look at this watch, Cody Rhodes. Did you gift me this like you truly meant it? Or was it just cause? Because every single time you just come out here and praise me, it's just, for your own sake. Just to make yourself look good. But then you go on interviews saying I'm not good enough to lead the company. Like, it seems like Seth Rollins is seeking validation from Cody Rhodes instead of being like, hey, look, I've changed. I'm a lot better. I'm not the same man you beat 3 times in a row. And you're going to learn that at Crown Jewel. Like, that's it, man. It was that simple. But no, you just have, Seth Rollins and Cody Rhodes just going on, just talking about a bunch of nothing, man. Like, was this a bad promo? No, it wasn't bad by any means. But, like, what story are we telling here? What kind of progression are we making? We got to make an impact. We got to make it matter. We got to tell a story that's going to make fans go, wow, that was something that made me feel something, And I don't think this segment did that. I don't think so, guys. Because, obviously, like I said, Seth Rollins, he just said everything that I just said, about the watch, about, like seeking validation from Cody Rhodes and all that stuff. And then Cody Rhodes, he spent like the first half of the promo just, glazing Seth Rollins, saying, thank you so much for changing my life at WrestleMania. All right, you get the point. I'm not going to do a Cody Rhodes impression again. It's too annoying, man. But yeah, that's all he said, Oh, thank you for saving me at WrestleMania, blah, blah, blah. You're great. You're awesome. You're one of the best in the business. And, sometimes you are the absolute best. Wow, you're amazing. Like, that's just it. And then, the second half of the promo, he's just like, what does he say, bro? Oh, yeah. He says, like, is our match at Crown Jewel going to be one-on-one? Or are your goons going to interfere? And, he also says, like, we faced 3 times before. And who's won? I mean, how many have you won, huh? And, like, that was it, that was it for the promo. And it's like, come on, man, whoa, what story are we telling here? But whatever, man. Like I said, it's not an entirely bad promo, but it's just not great. It's just not good either, And it had the potential to be great. That's my biggest issue with this, Because I really like Seth Rollins. I really like Cody Rhodes. I really like their dynamic. I really like every single time they've been in the ring together, Every single match they had together. And I'm not just talking about their trilogy. I'm talking about, the Shield versus the Rhodes brothers matches. I'm talking about the tag match they had at WrestleMania 40. They've always had great chemistry, whether they're, against each other or on the same team. They've always done some great stuff. And I was really excited for this. I am still excited for this, from an in-ring standpoint. But the story they're telling is just not, as good as I thought it should be. So yeah, that was it for this promo. Cody Rhodes just says, like, Seth, I've beaten you thrice before, blah, blah, blah. And he just leaves. That was pretty much it. that was pretty much it. So yeah, with that being said, let's just move on. Anyways, then we see this backstage segment with Jey Uso and Jimmy Uso, where, Jimmy Uso basically says that, hey, it was horrible, It was horrible what happened to us at WrestlePalooza. I am pissed, and I went to Adam Pearce to get our WrestlePalooza rematch. Yeah, I can't talk today, man. Yeah, whatever. That's what he says. He went Adam Pearce to get the rematch, but then he learned from Adam Pearce that Jey Uso already has a match tonight. He asked for the match, and it's LA Knight versus Jey Uso. And Jimmy's like, come on, man. Why are you doing that? Why do you have beef with LA Knight now? Like, come on, just squash the beef. Just get it over with. And Jey Uso's like, man, shut your mouth, Oos. Shut your ass up, Oos. I did it because I wanted to, Oos. Yeah. And obviously, he doesn't say that word for word, but that was basically it. He basically, like, screams at Jimmy Uso. He's like, yo, guess what? We wouldn't have lost the match at WrestlePalooza if that guy wasn't the special guest referee. So look, we got a lot of problems right now, but guess what? We're going to solve all of them after I whoop this guy's ass. That was pretty good, I'm not going to lie. Pretty good promo from Jey Uso. Because you see, here's the thing. When you don't revolve his entire promo, or his own character as a matter of fact, like his whole character, when you don't revolve his entire character around one word, it just makes everything he does so much better. Now, don't get me wrong here. This is not me saying Jey Uso is all of a sudden a good performer now. He's just a lot better than before, And I did complain about this whole, like, heel Jey Uso thing, like, last week or, a couple of weeks ago or something like that. Because, like, bro, I just want to see the Usos back. I just want to see the good old classic Usos back. Like, it's just that simple, man. Just bring back the Usos. The old theme song and everything. Just have them go out there and run the tag division. That's all I wanted. But this whole heel Jey Uso thing seems pretty promising, I'm not going to lie. So I'm not going to, totally complain about it either. So yeah, with that being said, let's just move on. Anyways, then we see the New Day and Grayson Waller versus, War Raiders and Penta. It's like, come on, man. Come on. But I'll give them this. This was a pretty good match. Like, sure, yeah, it was anything goes. They did, pull off some pretty cool spots. I did kind of enjoy this. But at the end of the day, like, come on, man. Come on. Is there anybody that genuinely cares about this? Is there anybody that genuinely cares about the New Day and Grayson Waller? Whatever this stupid partnership is. I still don't get it, by the way. The New Day and Grayson Waller. Like, come on, man. That's the dumbest thing you could come up with. And, Penta, whatever he's doing right now, like, I don't even know. Because I swear to God, this guy was feuding with the Vision not too long ago. And all of a sudden, he's now in this random feud with the New Day for no reason whatsoever. Here's what's confusing me, though. How do you have Penta in a tag team feud? How do you have him in a feud against a tag team? One of the greatest tag teams in WWE history, by the way, the New Day. How do you have him in a feud with them? And you don't even put Penta in the tag team that he's known for. You don't even bring back the Lucha Brothers. Like, this would actually mean something if you did Penta and Rey Fenix versus the New Day. Like, that would be a great match. That would actually be a dream match, Even though, obviously, the New Day, the heel New Day sucks, whatever, But still, that would be a dream match at the end of the day. But yeah, whatever, now we're stuck with the War Raiders and Penta versus the New Day. Like, who cares? But yeah, like I said, pretty entertaining match. And that's about it. We got some pretty cool spots. Obviously, Penta's team picks up the win, and that's pretty much it. Pretty much nothing to talk about here, so let's just move on. Anyways, then we see Stephanie Vaquer, and, there's really nothing to talk about here, She just gets on the mic, and she just says, thank you, and she panders to the crowd a bit, and, she just says, like, I am ready for anybody, and that was pretty much it, Obviously, it's understandable that Stephanie Vaquer can't cut, really good promos, because, language barrier and stuff like that. I get it. And obviously, her in-ring skills speak for her anyways. But anyways, yeah, then Adam Pearce gets in the ring, and he's all like, oh, yeah, Crown Jewel, you're either going to face Nia Jax, or Tiffany Stratton, or Jade Cargill. What do you think about that? And Stephanie Vaquer is just like, oh, I'm ready for anybody or something. I don't even know, something along those lines, basically, And that was pretty much it. She just got a bunch of pyro, and that's pretty much it. So yeah, there's really nothing to talk about here, so let's just move on. Anyways, then we see Roxanne Perez versus Bayley. Of course, we're telling this, split personality, gimmick with Bayley. And like I said last week, and I'm not the biggest fan of it. I think it's kind of stupid. But, at least they're doing something, And like I said last week, something's better than nothing. So yeah, I'll be honest, I don't really remember what this match was like. It wasn't anything too crazy, obviously, but what was notable was that we got Lyra Valkyria interfering in the match to even the odds, obviously, from the Raquel Rodriguez shenanigans that we get in every single Raquel Rodriguez match, or Roxanne Perez match. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Dude, I'm just botching names like Michael Cole, dude. What the hell? So yeah, and then randomly in the end of the match, Bayley transforms into the, role model Bayley, and then she just beats up Roxanne Perez and wins the match. And then Lyra Valkyria tries to hug her, and she just pushes her away, basically, telling this split personality story. And like I said, I think it's pretty stupid. I don't really care about it. So yeah, whatever, man. Let's just move on. Anyways, then we see Rusev versus JD McDonagh. I actually kind of enjoyed this. I thought this was really good. JD McDonagh is one of the most underrated guys on the roster, dude. I'm just going to say it right now. He's really good. Like, this guy just knows how to play his part, dude. So yeah, this was pretty enjoyable. I was entertained by this. And then obviously Rusev wins. And then we get this post-match brawl where, Rusev has the accolade on JD McDonagh. And then Dominic Mysterio doesn't save him because he's like afraid of Rusev or something. He doesn't want to intervene. But then Finn Balor, takes down Rusev and saves JD McDonagh. And Finn Balor's pissed at, Dominic Mysterio because like, well, why didn't you save him, Dom? Why didn't you save him? And that was pretty much it, They're still trying to tell this breakup story with Finn Balor and Dominic Mysterio. Like, come on, man. We've been doing this for a year now. Like, who cares? Either do it or don't do it. It's not that hard. So anyways, yeah, with that being said, let's just move on. We're going to be getting this match next week, by the way. Dominic Mysterio versus Rusev. I really wouldn't mind it going either way, Although I do think Dominic Mysterio losing the championship on a random Raw after, being a champion for so long and also being double champion right now, I think it'd be kind of weird if he just loses to Rusev on Raw. But I still wouldn't mind seeing Rusev win the IC title. So yeah, with that being said, let's just move on. Anyways, then we see LA Knight versus Jey Uso, and I did not enjoy this, man. LA Knight and Jey Uso, it's like their wrestling styles, and they just don't clash well, So yeah, this was just whatever. I didn't really care about this. We see the Vision in the match, and LA Knight gets distracted, and Jey Uso wins off of the distraction. Like, come on, man. Like, first of all, how many times is LA Knight going to lose? Like, is this guy ever going to win a match, dude? It's just funny at this point. Triple H definitely hates LA Knight, dude. He has something against LA Knight. But anyways, yeah, whatever, man. I've talked about this countless times. I don't even care anymore, man. Yeah, I've just accepted at this point. LA Knight, Drew McIntyre, they're never going to get a push. Or not really push, They're never going to get what they deserve, basically. But yeah, then we see Jimmy Uso, and he's standing with Jey Uso on the stage, and then the Vision gets in the ring. They're going to attack LA Knight, 2-on-1, and Jimmy's like, come on, Uso, let's help him, Uso, and Jey Uso just like, nah, Uso, I'm getting out of here, Uso, and he just gets out of there. But then Jimmy Uso, obviously, because he's good, he's a good guy, he gets in the ring, and to even the odds and save LA Knight, but, Bryan and Bronson just dip. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I don't know where this is gonna head. Obviously, they're doing this like Jey Uso heel storyline, maybe tweener. I don't know. While I do like that a lot more than, the same yeet stuff every single week, but like, come on, man, it's still not going to be that good. Let's be honest here. The main event division revolving around, Jey Uso versus LA Knight. Like, come on, man. Come on. So anyways, yeah, with that being said, let's just move on. And now it's time for the main event. We got Rhea Ripley versus Asuka. This was actually a pretty fun match, I did enjoy this. Obviously, Rhea Ripley's on Raw for the first time in God knows how long, because every single week she's just relegated to a backstage segment, and she just shows up after the show for, for a cheap pop, basically. So I'm glad they finally booked her, because it is crazy. You cannot expect us to treat somebody like a top star if you don't even book them, if you have them backstage and you don't even have them on the show. Like, get out of here, man. But anyways, yeah, this was a pretty good match. Like I said, I did enjoy this. Obviously, this is because of the, Asuka and Io Sky storyline where she's like possessive over her and stuff like that. And like I said last week or a couple of weeks before, I don't know. I don't even know, man, at this point. The same stories have been going on for months, so I don't even know. But yeah, I think the story is pretty stupid. I think it's kind of dumb. But, whatever. Like I said with the Bayley stuff, something is better than nothing. And at least this match has some story. But anyways, then Rhea Ripley wins off of a small package, I'm pretty sure. Like, I don't even remember. And then Io Sky spits the mist on Rhea Ripley. And then we see Io Sky and stuff like that. And then Io Sky turns on Asuka. So yeah, like I said, I think the story is pretty stupid. But something's better than nothing. It's just whatever. But do I think this should have main evented Raw? Not really, like the match was good. Don't get me wrong, I did enjoy the match, but let's be honest here, the story, man, the story, I just don't like this. So anyways, yeah, that is it for Monday Night Raw. Obviously did have its moments. Luckily, we didn't get the same old Vision stuff in this show. That's why it felt kind of refreshing, It didn't feel like the same old Vision show. I'm going to give this show like a 4.75 out of 10. The fact that this was above average, the fact that 4.75 out of 10 is above average for Monday Night Raw in 2025 is absolutely crazy, man. But yeah, that's the situation we're in right now. Like I said in my WrestlePalooza review, we really are in the dark ages right now. And I did see a lot of people glazing this episode of Raw online, and it's like, come on, man. Like I said at the intro, WWE is just going to go back to sucking once again. Because just like every single remotely decent thing we've had this year, this is just a desperate move they pulled out of their ass. So yeah, that is it for today's video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see y'all next time. Peace out.